Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Advochats. I'm Thilini Bandara, Research Analyst from Advocata Institute, and so today we are joining with Mr. Nilushana Sooriyaarachchi, who is an Agribusiness and Value Chain Development Specialist who is working at multiple agencies. So today we are discussing about what's stopping SMEs from trade. So under this topic, we will be discussing about the barriers which SMEs face during the current crisis, and also the policy gaps in the existing current situation, and also the way forward. Mr. Sooriyaarachchi will be joining in a little while. Hi, Mr. Nilushana. Welcome to the
Hello,
discussion.
good evening.
Yes, nice to have you in our discussion. So first of all, I would like to start our discussion with the importance of having SMEs in the economy. So as we all know, SMEs are comprises of over 75% of overall enterprises, and also they contribute for more than 20% of exports, and also they contribute for around 45% of employment generation, and also again they are contributing to 52% of overall GDP to the country. At the same time, they are rich source of rural development, and also regional development, and poor people to get rid of poverty. So likewise, there are a lot of contributions made by SMEs to the economy. So first of all, I would like to know your aspects on that angle, potentials of SMEs in the current economy.
Right, thank you, Thilini, and again, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Advocata Institute for, inviting me for this interesting discussion. It's a timely discussion as well. We have been hearing a lot about SMEs recently, especially during last couple of weeks. Even the opposition party, they have raised their concerns over the state of the SMEs at present. So I think this would be an ideal opportunity for us to dig deep and have a fruitful conversation about the SMEs in the country and how we can take it forward, as you said quite correctly. So coming back to your question, Thilini, so how SMEs contribute to the economy. So first, I would look at the rural areas of the country. So if you look at our population, Sri Lanka, so mostly, 81% of the population, they live in rural areas, right? So there are no, many large-scale companies, large-scale entities in those areas. So majority of the entities are SMEs. So if you, as you said quite correctly, 45% of our, the labor force, they work in SMEs. So SMEs directly impact on, reducing the unemployment rate and, giving this the platform for us to, generate employment within the country. And also connecting to the same point, also again it gives us a kind of a platform for us to regional development in the country. So we are talking about this disparity between rural and urban setup, and it's a kind of a buzzword as well. So it gives more avenue for us to look at how the income generation happens in the rural communities, and ultimately which would lead to alleviate poverty, as you said quite correctly, and also subsequent livelihood development as well. So bridging this rural-urban divide, so it is one of the key area when it comes to these SMEs and so how they act upon it, right? And again, thirdly, the export potential as well. So many of the SMEs, they are export oriented, right? So you say garments, textiles, handicrafts, agro processing, and it can be services like IT as well. So if you look at our total exports as a pie, you see 20% of the revenue, it comes from SMEs, right? So it gives our entrepreneurs again a kind of a platform how they link to the international trade as well, and also which will bring the foreign exchange for us as well, which is very important at this moment, because since we are trying to build a reserve, because with the current issue with the foreign exchange, especially USD, so it builds the export competitiveness and also allow us to diversify the economy at the same time, right? And we all know SMEs are hubs for innovation as well. So mainly they are into if you compare, the large entities, SMEs are more agile and they are more flexible, right? So they don't have, many regulations and restrictions as such in, when it comes to the management like large entities. So they can easily, grab these market opportunities, right? Which will allow them to, foster more creativity and also innovation at the same time. So they will be able to, come up with more new products, services, and also, the technology as well. Since this, agility and the flexibility inherently lies within the system itself, right? Also, I would like to highlight about the supply chain linkages. Right? They are very, the integral part of the supply chain. Mostly they are suppliers, they can be subcontractors, right? Also, they can be service providers for large enterprises. So they do have this symbiotic relationship when it comes to supply chain with the, other supply chain or value chain actors. So it will provide them to, kind of, foster interfirm linkages and also collaboration, which would ultimately, provide this overall economic competitiveness accordingly. Not forgetting, one of the important aspect when it comes to SMEs is the social impact. Right? We all know mostly SMEs, some of them are women entrepreneurs. If you look at statistics, 27% out of all the registered entities. I'm talking only about the registered entity. There are many informal entities as well. So they are woman-headed. Right? So we are talking about gender equality, right? Supporting marginalized communities. So this social impact is crucial, which is very much, linked with SMEs as well. So which promotes the inclusivity ultimately. So overall, as you said quite correctly, SMEs are, kind of a backbone of our economy. So it gives more opportunity for us to, expand our economy. So as you said quite correctly, so 52% of our GDP, right, it comprises of, the SMEs contribution. So we have more opportunities to, take this figure up as well. Yeah.
Yes, as you very correctly mentioned, even though there's a contribution to the sector, to the economy, but we can grab more potentials out of them. But still, as we like evident from most of the research, so they are constrained by various barriers in terms of resource gaps, and also they are having limited access to capital, and at the same time they are having technology barriers and also regulatory and policy barriers and so on. So those barriers actually like hamper their growth and contribution to the economy. So what do you think about that angle?
Yeah, very true, Thilini. So, as you said, there are many barriers at present, and also it was there in before as well. So, if you look at, the most prominent barrier is the access to finance. So, mostly we see, they struggle to secure credit from institutions, right? They have, even if you look at these lending organizations, they have very stringent requirements, right? So, even the SMEs, they don't have, the collateral like the bigger entities, right? And even with the high interest rates, so it hampers their abilities to invest in new equipment or even to expansion and also to innovate. So that is one of the key barrier when it comes to, SMEs operation, and also the business regulation environment, right? So which is very complex and sometimes can be very burdensome for, even for the new entrants and also the already running entities as well. So compliance with these numerous regulations, licensing requirement, and also the process is very bureaucratic sometimes, and time consuming, and also costly, and especially it can be confusing for entities like SMEs. And if you look at, ease of doing business ranking, so World Bank, so out of, all the 190 economies which they have, published, we have been ranked at 99th position, which shows, it's not easy for us to, even for a large entity, to start a business and run in Sri Lanka. So that is, one of the barrier when it comes to SMEs operation in Sri Lanka. And also we see, we don't have, adequate physical infrastructure as well, especially when it comes to transportation and energy, right? So which hinders the growth of the SMEs as well. Right? So we have seen last year, there were power outages and the utility bills, they went up like crazy. So all these factors affected, and many of the SMEs, they have, exited from the, their business operations because of this, the infrastructure issues surrounding their operation. And again, one of the most important factors when it comes to their operation is their human resources availability, right? And the skills of this human resource aspect. So they have this issue of, attracting skilled labor and retaining them especially, and they have to compete with the large entities as well. So if you look at the statistics, So the last year itself, we have seen 300,000 people have left Sri Lanka for foreign opportunities, and up to now this year itself, now it's almost 80,000 people have left. So these are the barriers. I mean, when it comes to human resources and skills, while they have this ongoing operation in SMEs, and one of the critical factors again is the market access, right? So they have to compete with the large entities when it comes to market, right? And the capabilities, they sometimes branding can be very weak, and the large players can dominate them, right? So these are very challenging when it comes to SMEs to gain visibilities and expand their customer base. So it's one of the critical factor when it comes to SMEs operation, right? And also the technology adoption. So you see, mostly the technology is within the large entities, but whether this a small, SMEs having these technologies is a question mark, right? So they don't have, the resources, knowledge, and so to integrate this technology, they will have to, compete with the larger players as well. So those are the, the main barriers when it comes to their, operation in Sri Lankan context.
Yes, absolutely true, Mr. Nilushana. So when it comes to SME sector, they are constrained by lack of resources and also like technology barriers, as you very correctly mentioned, and also they have like lack of access to like capital in the sense, because most of the SMEs, they do have to provide a lot of things when getting loans from banks. So there are a lot of barriers when coming into the SME sector. And moving towards with these barriers, we have observed in recent past that most of the SMEs have been like moved away from the businesses. So research suggested like around 45 to 50% of business failures are there in the SME sector. And also when it comes to like the failures, most of the 20% of SMEs are moved away within 1 year, and also sometimes 45 to 50% of SMEs are moved away from businesses within the first 5 years. So that's how the statistics are there in terms of business failures. So what do you perceive as the reasons for this high rate of business failures in Sri Lankan context?
Yeah, Thilini. So people only talk about, in the current economic crisis when it comes to the dire state of SMEs at the moment. But in my opinion, it's not the case. It actually it's a kind of it's a process. It started with the constitutional coup back in 2018, right? And after that, East attack, and then followed up with the pandemic, and finally the economic crisis. So it's a series of events which triggered these issues with SMEs, and as you said quite correctly, most of them have went out from their business, as you said, right? So inflation rates, as you said, right? So high inflation rates and interest rates. So it used to be like 30%, and inflation went up to 70% as well, right? Even the entities who have obtained loans at 7% before, they sometimes maybe they were not aware. So maybe it's variable rate, right? So now again the interest rate has gone up, so they have to pay additional amount for banks when it comes to repayment also. So default rate is around 4% at the moment. And most, one of the the critical fact, alarming fact when it comes to this issue, this year, the first 4 months itself, banks, they have seized more than 400 SMEs assets at the moment through the Parrot Execution Act. Right. So this creates uncertainty within the business environment, right? So which the players like small to medium players, they cannot survive within this structure. So they will not be able to expand their business, and also mostly they will exit from the business, and we will see very less or limited new entrants as well. On top of that, what I have noticed, when I'm working with these SMEs with my career also, so they do have this issue with lack of financial literacy as well. So mostly, other than banks, we are working with more than 2,000 microfinance institutions at the moment. So mostly these people go to these microfinancial institutes and get the loans at very higher rate also. So they do not have this awareness on the financial instrument, other financial instruments. So may not be popular, right, with them. So which leads to poor financial management. So ultimately, it will it's a kind of a series. So then they will do, inadequate accounting practices, cash flow management, budgeting. It's a series, and then financial financial instability automatically will occur within their setup itself. So ultimately result in business failure. So that is also very crucial element when it comes to these issues with especially failures and bankruptcy of SMEs. And also, as I said before, I still believe, the skilled labor, the unavailability of skilled labor also one of the key elements. So they do struggle to attract and retain skilled labor, as I said before. So mostly because of the competition from the larger companies, and also they are not in a situation to match those, packages which offer by, these large entities. So this can seriously impact their productivity and also innovation and overall business performance, which leads to, underperformance, and ultimately they will, exit from the setup. So those are the, three main factors which I observe as the, the main failures, and the, which would lead to bankruptcy eventually.
Yes, absolutely true. Also, when we talking about the supply chain side, because SMEs are highly associated with supply chains. So right now, with the current crisis as well as previous pandemic situation, global and local supply chains, those have been heavily interrupted, and kind of a lot of issues are there right now in the supply chain in terms of structural issues, as well as those supply chains are also highly vulnerable to various economic and climate related and various issues actually. So in that terms, what do you think about the impact of supply chain operations, or the impact of inefficiencies led in the supply chain, how that been affected for the SME's performance?
Yes. So when it comes to supply chain, so mostly people look at how you build up, the confidence between the supply chain actors. So if you look at the current context, we see our macroeconomic conditions are not stable, right? So we do agree about that part. So how an investor or a trader or a party will look at Sri Lanka and, see how they can do the, transaction within these, actors itself, the supply chain. So it's kind of riskier for the investors or traders to come in and, work with at this moment. But of course, now we are in a recovery path. Definitely, there will be a scope for us to, move out and do it accordingly. So in addition to that, we see our mostly our supply chains, they are, not mostly localized. They are not into, global value chains. So there is an issue with limited global value chain participation within, our supply chain setups. So if you look at statistics, 73% of our exports are direct, right? Comparing to, South Asia countries, which is 69, and even if you look at Southeast Asia, which is around 53, which is really good, right? So we are not, actively integrating into value chain, right? So we are not into component production, and we are, mostly we are exporting directly. So we have to think about that as well when it comes to value chain integration or the supply chain integration. So, and also the infrastructure limitations. So ports, roads, and the railways, we have faced challenges in keeping up with the growing demand. So the world is moving on, but our facilities are still, hindering, they are still lagging behind. So this inadequate infrastructure also can result in delays and, transportation costs, inefficiencies in the supply chain. So these are, critical factors, right? Also, the connecting to the same point which I've highlighted regarding the infrastructure. So our logistic, also warehousing, those are also, kind of, right? They are not up to the international standards. So we see inefficient practices, outdated systems can be lead to, delays, increased costs, reduced competitiveness, right? So mostly the investors and the global partners, they look at how we, maintain the competitiveness. So we will not be able to compete within the international setup if we don't, increase these setups in, infrastructure setup in Sri Lankan context. And also I see that, the actors itself, coordination and the collaboration among the, value chain actors or the supply chain actors are some limits of problem. Right? So if this collaboration and the coordination among your, the actors within the supply, of course, the performance will be suboptimal. So we need to look at that. Of course, we will discuss about this when we go deep into our discussion. And as I said before, also the technology adaptation into our value chains. In the we talk about automation, robotics, digitalization of supply chain Are we there? I mean, are we up to that level? So it's a question mark again. It's relatively low in Sri Lanka, but we are of course picking up, but there's more room for us to grow and integrate technology, and then of course we will be able to hinder these efficiencies. I mean, improve the efficiency of the value chain accordingly, which would ultimately have a better responsiveness to global demand.
Yes, that makes sense actually. We need to like focus more on how to increase the efficiency of the supply chain and allow SMEs to like operate more smoothly in the businesses. Just a following question on how we can assure the long-term viability or sustainability of this supply chain, because they are highly vulnerable to various shocks actually. So how we can assure that aspect?
Yeah. So if I talk about, I mean, agriculture as a supply chain, right? Which is one of the key area when it comes to SMEs as well, because most of the SMEs are part of agriculture, right? So mostly what I noticed with my, I've been involved with agriculture value chains a long time, and then more than 8 to 9 years. So what I've noticed, they do have these issues with access to finance, access to technology, right? Market, and also especially the information. Those are the four, I mean, critical areas when it comes to agriculture value chain, which we should look at, I mean, in a serious manner. And as I said also before, the lack of coordination also among these supply chain actors, right? So we are talking mostly about the supply chain, but we are sometimes ignoring the value chain, right? So if it is a kind of a value chain, we will have this crossway communication as well, right? The market information will be there, so the farmers will be very much aware about it, right? So demand versus supply, especially when it comes to the farmers, right? So they of course do the production according to the demand. So if you do not have this correct information within the if they don't get it, so of course, for an example, as a set of farmers, they will of course grow and only one crop, right? And then the production will be higher, and there will be more gluts in the market, and they will not be able to fetch a good price for their product, right? So then of course they will go to the street and protest, right? So this is again lack of coordination among the actors, and the passing, I mean, the information asymmetry as well, right? And again the infrastructure, right? So we do not have, I mean, although the private sector is having these cold chains, they are managing it well, storage facilities, but whether the SMEs are engaged with this kind of infrastructure, do they have the facilities? These are again question marks. So if you look at our post-harvest losses, especially for, I mean, the perishable cost, the post-harvest losses, I mean, it's calculated 20 billion per annum, right? 30 to 40% of the the national production is wasted because of this lack of infrastructure support. Okay, and also the access to technology, as I said. So it will hamper their ability to invest in the equipment, and also the machinery, and also the quality inputs, right? It should improve the productivity and reduce the post-harvest losses. So they will have to think about the technology incorporation, as I said before. And most critically, I'm highlighting this again and again, the access to market. So we are talking about middlemen and multiple intermediaries, right? So then it will increase transaction costs and also reduce returns to farmers as well, right? But I'm not saying we should ignore the middleman fully, but of course they should be regulated within the supply chain. So if you do regulate, of course, then the supply chain will be, I mean, managed properly, and the farmers will have more direct access to market, and then they can control the the price volatility as well when it comes to consumer end as well. And other critical element is the value addition. So do we usually mostly try to sell raw material itself. Can we value add? I mean, when you value add, of course, you can look at those niche markets, and you can get more profits out of it. And of course, you can diversify income. But unfortunately, SMEs are mostly driven through limited value addition, which should be, I mean, enhanced through providing more support like processing facilities and other related infrastructure accordingly.
Yes, absolutely true. Also, I believe that government has a big role to play in this scenario, because government and also the relevant other stakeholders should play in one-to-one in hand to make a more conducive environment for SMEs especially. So in policy angle also, still there's lack of policies still targeting SMEs right now. So what sort of gaps you also kind of identified in existing policy framework in terms of targeting SMEs?
Yeah. So again, I will look at agriculture because that's one of my expertise area. So if you look at, the current issue with fertilizer ban, right? Chemical fertilizer ban. So it created a huge issue, right? So ultimately, if you want to save foreign exchange, that was the, ultimate objective of the government. But ultimately, we had to pay more than, what we have spent before for importing fertilizer for our, stable crops like rice importation. So so why it's happened now? Although it's corrected, it's been corrected, and now the recent government, of course, they have started importing, but damage has been already done. So now you see our crop production, it's affected 30 to 40% crop loss during last 2 seasons. So we Sri Lanka, we do have the season based production, right? So timely availability of this critical inputs very important. So if you do not have that, even if you provide it now, even now, the government is providing at the moment, but even if it is late, you will not be able to sustain, right? So these type of inconsistent and ad hoc policy implementation, of course, definitely impact on SMEs, because most of these raw materials goes to SMEs within the rural setup, and then of course they do certain value addition or primary processing, and of course then they do send it to market itself. So and also import control, right? Sometime ad hocly impose taxes, right? Especially during the harvesting season. For an example, let's say a potato. So you as a potato farmers, if during the harvesting season, if government relax the tax for potato imports, of course then market will have foreign a lot of potatoes from outside countries. Then they will not be able to get a good price. So we should think about these type of the policy issues when it comes to maintaining SMEs sustainability, right? And also I can give another example: wheat import, right? So rice millers are there. So some of the rice millers, they are into more value-added products as well. So they want to promote rice-based product as an alternative for wheat, right? But if you even during when they are doing it in a sustainable manner, if you import more wheat, the country, of course, still the preferable thing is wheat, right? So wheat based product, you will not be able to promote your rice based value addition. So this lack of transparency in taxing also it severely affects SMEs when it comes to their operation in the long run.
Yes, absolutely true. So moving forward, I would like to bring examples from other economies as well, how other countries have adopted and focused on devising their policies targeting SMEs. So if I get an example from Vietnam government, so Vietnam government has implemented a SME development law in 2017, which is targeting the development of SME sector. So that law has enabled a legal framework for SMEs to operate in a more easy way, and at the same time government also has implemented various programs encouraging SMEs to involve in trade, and also encouraging more entrance to the businesses. Also at the same time, Vietnamese government has introduced sort of incubation hubs for SMEs to involve in trade, and they facilitate SMEs in providing mentoring and also providing advices on legal aspects, and also providing awareness on technology adoption and sort of stuff. So likewise, what sort of examples that you also can bring into the discussion at the moment for us to learn some ideas for devising our policies when devising policies?
Yeah, yeah. So you have highlighted about the Vietnam, one of the classic example when it comes to development of SMEs, right? So if you look at Vietnam, 68% of their national the export, it comes from SMEs, and 86% of their labor force are within SMEs. So they know the SMEs are the backbone of their economy, right? And on top of what we have mentioned, so they do have, I mean, kind of an entity called, Agency for Enterprise Development, which is called AED, and also assistance centers, right? 3 assistance centers in their main cities to support these, SMEs, to groom them. They can easily go there and, get all the services within one place itself, right? As you said, they do have a, separate SME support law as well, and also digitalized SME support portal as well. So any entity, then they can just log in and they can, do, I mean, from the registration itself, all the activities they can, of course, do it within this portal itself. In Sri Lanka also we have, enterprise development, but the question mark whether, they do have that convenience when it comes to operation within the SMEs. And other example is again Malaysia. Malaysia is, I mean, more prominent, and 99% of their entities are SMEs, right? Mostly 5% of their labor force are engaged in the SMEs. So if I give you another, in Malaysia, in the context of Malaysia, they have, I mean, recently they have started PEN, which is National Economic Recovery Program, right? So they have, I mean, provided with the program itself after the pandemic. So they have, I mean, provided a lot of interest subsidies, right? They have, I mean, eased a lot of import and export taxes, specifically focused on the SMEs itself. They have given tax incentives, even the government grants to, I mean, their SMEs. So, and also digitalization. So all the business procedure is digitalized. So which is, very convenient for any, I mean, SME to work on, right? And also, as you said, the startup incubator programs. Those are very critical. And in Sri Lanka also, we are coming up, these kind of things, especially incubator programs. But still, we are, lagging behind. So we need to, I mean, come up to that level when it comes to, I mean, supporting our SMEs accordingly.
Yes, absolutely true. And also, I personally believe that there should be a multi-stakeholder approach, not only the government. There's a responsibility of other stakeholders also to like contribute to the process, such as like private sector organizations, NGOs, CSOs, and INGOs, and sort of entities. So all these entities can have a more inclusive and participatory approach in devising these programs, and also contributing for SMEs to develop and grow in themselves. So what are your thoughts on this angle, the multi-stakeholder approach in developing the SME side?
Yeah, very important, very important. I mean, even in my opinion, we should have a kind of an authority for SMEs. So, like, you can then centralize all the functions of various institutes as well. We do have a lot of, I mean, regional setups, but I mean, I'm not sure whether they are, I mean, the activities are centralized. Kind of, they should have a coordination between each other. Especially, as you said, very, I mean, correctly, the multi-stakeholder participation. So then they can, of course, leverage government resource, and also private sector can also involve, and service. They can provide service accordingly, right? And even all the regional platforms, they can be also put into one place and monitor from a central point of view. So it gives more, I mean, avenues for SMEs to reach out, rather than, going here and there and getting the support and getting confused eventually. So one of the, I mean, examples from the agriculture, this was promoted by International Fund for Agricultural Development, related to agriculture again. We call it 4Ps approach, producer, public, private partnerships. So this type of setup, of course, as I said before, so you will allow all the promoters, I mean, all the stakeholders to provide their expertise, right, including the farmers as well, right? And also the shared risk and reward as well. Then you have this, kind of confidence within the the stakeholders itself. So if you take private sector, they can of course provide the technology, and we know they are best in management. They do have the technology, so we can pass down this technology for SMEs or the farmers accordingly, right? They can provide extension support as well, the training and development, and also the inputs, because of course the quality inputs they can maintain and they can provide to the partnership with it, right? Farmers, of course, they can provide the labor, and right, also they can maintain their crops. And the government role also very important. Government, in my opinion, they should not go into the business. They should provide the business environment for other actors to thrive and act accordingly, right? Then they should provide this policy framework we have discussed extensively, and also then it will allow both the private sector or the other, SMEs or even the farmer groups to, build the country, because they know the government is also been, involved. So that's how, you create a partnership setup and then build, confidence between all these stakeholders, and of course then ultimately it will, affect the entire sustainability of the SMEs and how they, manage in the future within the supply chain or value chain itself.
Yes, absolutely true. There's a big role in every stakeholder in the process to make a conducive environment for SMEs and also allow SMEs to grow actually in the trade, operate in the trade in very efficient manner. With this, I think like we had a very fruitful discussion on the barriers which SMEs face and also the structural and economic issues in the supply chain which hamper their growth, and also at the same time the barrier gaps in the policy framework and how we can move forward with lucrative solutions from how other countries also have adopted these solutions, and learnings from other countries and so on. So I hope that this brings to end of our discussion today. So thank you very much, Mr. Nilushana, and thank you so much for our audience as well. Before winding up the session, I would like to remind to our audience to stay updated with all our chats like this and also all the works that we do. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Nilushana, for your time and for your valuable insights to this discussion. And thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day.